and welcome back. Once again, adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS Child. In the last episode, Takuru Miyashiro finally learned of the reasons why Uki Yamazoe had desperately created this false reality. After inadvertently stabbing him moments after the tragedy of what happened to Yui Tachibana, both to keep herself and Takuru from experiencing the harshness of true reality. And at that moment, Takuru had finally succumbed to eternal sleep. But that is not where the story ends, nor how it ends, because otherwise it would just be left without a satisfying conclusion. But those are all the bad endings, quote unquote, of Uki Yamazoe's character route. But this time, we need to press just a little bit further. Which brings us back here to the RV trailer where Takuru is mulling over the fact that he has supposedly received a love letter from Yumi Euzaki, a person that, in all reality, doesn't actually technically exist. Or, of course, it could just be some expensive English language instructional materials, or some kind of weird cult thing. Could be that. Perhaps. Anyway, if I read it, I might be able to tell what it said. I couldn't get the sticker on the back off easily, so I carefully sliced it off with a pair of scissors and took out the pile of folded papers from inside.
なんだこれ。コピー用紙?
Why would someone stuff this into a cute envelope like that? Was she going for Gap Moe? Like, this is cute to me because it's bizarre and unexpected?
いや、でも中身は。
But the words on the paper were printed from a computer, not handwritten like the outside. Strange. I was a little disappointed, but that was fine. What was important was what they said. Let's see.
前略、宮代拓様。これまで私はずっとあなたのことを見ていました。
Very formal. That was normal.
けれど、ずっと宮代先輩を見ているだけなのは辛かったから、
こうしてありったけの勇気を出して手紙を出すことにしました。
Okay. Fair enough.
私がお伝えしたいことは至ってシンプルです。私は宮代先輩のことが好きです。ずっと前から大好きでした。きちんと整えられた宮代先輩の髪が好きです。鍛えられておらず、かといって痩せすぎていない体つきが好きです。
That's oddly specific.
知的そうなメガネが好きです。
Now that, of course, is just outright flattery.
クールな瞳も好きです。不遜さを感じさせる微量も好きです。 新聞部で陣頭指揮を取る様がリーダーシップにあふれていてとても素敵です。
Said no one ever. Yeah, pretty sure that no one has actually said that. Not even Kurusu.
はにかんだ笑顔が好きです。萌えです。萌え萌えキュンってなります。
萌え萌えキュン。
私は宮代先輩が好きです。宮代先輩の写真を隠し撮りして待ち受けにして毎晩ベッドの中で眺めています。
Now that is downright creepy.
先輩の髪の毛を拾ってぬいぐるみに入れいつも抱いて眠っています。
And we're just going into outright bizarre territory there. Very obsessive territory.
私はいつも先輩のこと見ています。いつも見ています。朝起きて寝ぼけた顔で眼鏡をかけるところも、外に出てまず最初に大きく伸びをするところも、一人でクールキャットプレスを読んでニヤニヤしているところも、いつも見ています。私はいつも先輩のことを見ています。いつも見ています。時々妄想しているところも見ています。そう、先輩はいつも妄想しています。言うなれば妄想の囚われ人です。
There's actually quite a bit of truth to that statement.
あなたは渋谷の妄想に囚われています。
Wait.
このままだと取り返しのつかないことになります。
Now it makes sense. Seems that Kurisu is using this as another means of trying to break through to Takuru's consciousness.
早くそこから逃げ出さなければ。逃げなさい。逃げろ。さもないとあなたは。あなたは。
And it stretches on.
なんだよこれ、怖いよ。
Fear won out over disappointment. She was a lunatic. A prisoner of my delusions? Run away? What the hell was she talking about? You don't know it yet, Takuru, but Kurisu is trying to save your life. She was watching me, I was a joke, right? But she knew about Cool Cat Press.
まさか本当に。
I stood up to look outside my window. And thus, that particular delusion ends. Huh? What was the sensation I was feeling? What was I... That's right, I was reading that letter.
あれ
The bed was covered with pink paper. It wasn't copy paper, and the writing on it was handwritten, not typed. I quickly looked through it, and it was a normal love letter. I don't think we need to read that. Yeah, I think we can move on from this point, so I shall see you all further up the road. Okay, adventurers, we're back. I think roughly where the final bad ending concluded. But this time, things are going to unfold quite differently. Maybe she was right. If Uki would make me happy, that was fine with me. I slowly sank into the abyss of unconsciousness. Wait, what? Another Uki? What the hell? Suddenly I heard a voice that pulled me back from the abyss. A roar filled the air and a single ray of light flashed. It felt like the void itself was being sliced apart. Exactly is going on. I struggled to open my eyes and then forced my vision back into focus. I saw two people there. Wait, what? One was Uki, who was on top of me, and the other... is also... also Uki? Huh. There's a sudden plot twist for you, if there was one. This delusion was, crafted by Uki herself. So why would there be a second Uki? It doesn't make any
Uki が
sense.
2人
The other Uki was holding a huge elegant blade, far too big for her little body, and using it to tear open a hole in space. Yeah, clearly one of these things is not like the other. So what exactly is going on here? The Uki from the other side of the void swung her sword down in a flash. The Uki on top of me leapt back and just barely dodged.
あなた
I suppose the obvious question is, which one is the real Uki Yamazoe? Part of me is tempted to say the one holding the G-sword. But I suppose we'll have to wait for the truth to reveal itself now, won't we? My mind was having trouble comprehending the fact that I was seeing two Ukis.
何なんだよこれ
What was happening? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. What was going on? Was this part of the dream? Or was it real? I was too tired to try and understand. Why were there two Ukis? The other Uki lifted her blade and readied it. Uki raised her hand out into the emptiness and plunged it into a crack between dimensions. The quanta formed in the dead spot in my brain. And with a dazzling light, the long flowing blade, the D-sword appeared in her hand. So now they both have D-swords. Great. That's all we need. The two of them stared at each other for a moment. They both moved at almost the exact same time. A blade was brought down in a flash, like a hawk descending on its prey. The other Uki raised her own weapon to block it. And then the other Uki launched her to counterattack. The sword scorched the air as it danced down faster than the wind. But a powerful strike was deflected by a strange movement when she held, where she held the blade diagonally. Wind, sound, impact. The two switched rapidly between attacker and defender. The two switched rapidly between one place and the other, making things even more confusing. So one Uki wants to keep us here and the other one maybe is trying to bring us back? The two switched rapidly in my mind. I couldn't tell which was which anymore. One of the Uki seemed to be losing slightly. She yelled in a loud voice that didn't sound like Uki at all.
騙される？どういうことだよ、それ。
彼女が今目の前にいるこの私がさっき話したことは全部嘘なんです。だから騙されないでください。
I think you kind of slipped up there with that statement. You said what the me that it's in front of you. Yeah. You kind of a slip of the tongue there with that autocorrect. Which goes to tell me that you are not actually Uki Yamazoe herself. And yet,
余計なこと言わないで。
a lie. What she just said, that I could live happily in my dreams, that was all a lie?
よく聞いてください。もしもこのまま彼女の言いなりになったとしても、あなたに幸せはありません。
僕に幸せはない。
Unfortunately, that is the truth, Takuru.
そうです。このままではあなたは妄想の中に溶けてゆくだけ。そのまま二度と戻ってこれなくなってしまうだけです。それ以上は。
Unfortunately, Yuki is not ready to let Takuru go just yet back into reality. Pale fireworks flashed violently in front of me and streaks of rainbow light burned into my eyes. I tried as hard as I could to think about what the other Uki, the one who had just appeared, was telling me.
タクルさん、この子の言ってることは嘘です。夢の中ならあなたは幸せになれるんです。違います。そんなの大嘘です。
Which was the real her? Who should I believe?
タクルさん、
Two
もう
very
一度
different
よく思い出して
questions.
ください。あの時何が起きたのかを。
Then,
あの日何が起きたのかをもう一度。それ以上は。
what happened that day that was... we remember all too well. That day. The day that Yui was murdered. What happened?
よく自分の心に問いかけてみてください。考えて結論にたどり着いてください。この妄想が本当は誰のものなのかを。
A delusion for us, or Uki. I could sense a door that was half open in the back of my mind. The vision of the past I'd seen started to slowly open that door once more.
ダメです。やめてください。思い出してはダメ。思い出して本当の出来事を、そしてこの妄想が本当は誰のものかを。
What really happened? On that day, tiny little boxes in the shape of a person, dark red liquid flowing out of them, an overwhelming metallic stench. Inside the boxes was...
ああ、どうだ。自分の大切なものを失う気分は。自分の無力さを思い知りながら後悔に苛まれる気分は。
I remembered this part. Because we've seen it so many times now. Almost as many times as the time loops of Rintaro Okabe, aka Hoin Kiyoma, and Steins Gate. That's what had happened that day.
彼女は俺にとってかけがえのない存在だった。それをお前は見殺しにしたんだ。でもこれでようやく復讐も終わる。
Of course, Shinji Ito was trapped in a delusion of his own.
伊藤、お前。次は宮代の番だ。よく切れるメスと麻酔薬は持ってきたか。
I've been so angry about Yui's death.
それがなきゃひどく痛くて苦しむぞ。ゆいちゃんみたいにな。伊藤、なんだ、泣いて命乞いでもするか。助けてくださいって土下座するか。お前本当に。
タクルさん。
Then Uki came.
よかった、見つかった。ゆいちゃんは。
When she saw what happened to Yui,
いや。
and then she screamed.
なんだよ。
She wheel-booted the D-sword.
なんだ。なんだよこいつ。
I remembered the D-sword, flailing wildly. Ito running and screaming.
待てウキ、伊藤にはまだ。
I got between them. And then I reached out my hand.
やめろウキ。
And in my hand was my D-sword.
そうだ。
Wait, what?
あの時、僕は本能に突き動かされるまま、視界の隅に現れたディソードに手を伸ばして。
This is unfolding very differently from what we remember.
そして、その手を。
Very differently.
Sa されたのは僕じゃない。
タクルさん。
僕がウキを。
Horrible sensation of ripping through blood vessels and muscle fiber. Her body crumbling forward. The sound of her coughing up blood. The thud when she bounced off the pavement. Uki's body turning red. It all came back to me. Now we truly are in Steins Gate territory yet again. It seems. As the truth of the past came back to me, the Uki from this reality screamed and collapsed on the cold floor. But wait, that wouldn't explain the other Uki. She started to spasm and vomit up blood. Her limbs flailed out in impossible directions and froze. It was a slow death, but a certain one. My mouth went wide in open shock as I tried to understand what was happening to her. She reached out her hand in the air, fingers curled as if she wanted to grab something. And then her arm fell, and she stopped moving at all.
Uki. Uki.
I remembered. I remembered even if I wished I hadn't. What I'd just seen was the hidden truth. And because I'd remembered it, the Uki from this reality had died. All the exhaustion and desire for sleep that had been eating away at my body were gone. I suddenly felt something strange and looked down at my hands. In my right hand was a long, sharp sword. The shining blade was covered in sticky blood.
僕はまた
思い出してくれたんですね。
The other Uki whispered softly. Her eyes were filled with sorrow as she stared at her own twisted body lying on the floor. But are you really Uki Yamazoe?
ここはタクルさんが作った世界なんかじゃなかったんです。ここは山添ウキが作り出した世界。私の中の妄想の世界。
It was Uki's.
それじゃあウキは本物のウキは今
現実の私はタクルさんの隣のベッドで眠っています。
僕の隣で。
はい。そしてここは消えかかる命の中で旅立つ間際に見る夢の世界。
ウキの夢の世界。
そう。私の夢の世界を無意識にリアルブートしてしまいました。その夢にタクルさんを巻き込んだまま。
So this world was Uki's dream.
この子は
Uki's voice sounded a little sadder.
この子は私がずっと欲しいと思っていた憧れを手にした私でした。
Uki knelt down and silently closed her other self's eyes. And then she slowly stood up and walked over to the desk and opened the drawer. Not going to like what's inside, but we need to know what it is. She took out a tiny envelope. It was a pink envelope, like a little girl would choose.
覚えていますか？
それは
Indeed. It wasn't something from so long ago that I would forget it, and it had left an incredible impression on me. So I remembered it very well. It was the envelope that Yumi Aozaki had used to send her love letter. And with this moment, it has finally dawned on me, the reality of what has happened here. There was never anyone by the name of Yumi Aozaki, because that name is an anagram of Uki Yamazoe. I'm surprised it took me that long to figure that out. Then, I suppose it just goes to show how actually quite clever Uki Yamazoe is.
嘘をついてごめんなさい。
Uki looked a little embarrassed.
あの手紙を書いたのも、そしてあなたの理想の女の子の姿であのお店で待っていたのもこの子。
The other Uki.
いえ、私だったんです。
Uki was Yumi Aozaki. But why? Well, untangle the letters and you'll find out.
憧れていたんですね。きっと自分でも気づいていなかったけど。
In other words, Uki Yamazoe actually wanted to be as happy as everyone else.
だからせめて夢の中でもって。
It was a world that any girl might see once in her dreams. But for Uki, maybe that was what she'd always wanted. For a girl who'd grown up in that dark basement, who'd never gotten a chance to go to school.
ああ、そうか。
Yeah. Yumi Ayozaki. Something clicked in my mind. It's about time. Yumi Ayozaki. We arrange the letters and it becomes... I am Lord Voldemort. No, sorry, Adventures. I had to get that Harry Potter and the Chambers of Secrets joke out of the way. Instead, Uki Yamazoe. The answer had been there all along.
ありがとうございました、タクルさん。
Well, at least that's another mystery solved. Her eyes were still downcast as she spoke.
私は夢の中でほんの少しでも憧れの日々を送ることができました。
Hence the fact why everyone was pampering her and even decorating this very room the way that it is. I felt like I knew what Uki was trying to say.
でもこれでもう夢は終わりです。
Indeed, all dreams must come to an end.
ウキ、
もうすぐ現実の私は死んでしまうでしょう。
But that's...
でもその前にタクルさんはタクルさんのいるべき世界に戻ってください。あの人が久野里さんが言っていました。私が死ねばこの妄想の渋谷はディラックの海に飲み込まれてしまうって。
Of course. Without Uki Yamazoe to sustain it, this delusional reality will just disappear. Back into non-existence. And since Takuru's consciousness is currently inside, the same thing will happen to him.
だからタクルさんはその前に早く。
ウキは君はどうするつもりなんだ。
もう時間はありません。
答えになってない。お前はどうするんだよ。
I don't think there's anything she can do. After all, Gigolomaniac powers cannot be used to save people from death. Directly, at least. She tried to continue, but before she could get out the words, the strength left her body, and she was forced to the ground.
何？
I quickly ran over to her and grabbed her by the arm and tried to help her up. Unfortunately, her time is running out.
何やってんだよ。
タクルさん。
お前も一緒だろ。一緒に戻るんだよ。
She can't. Because she too is a delusion. No matter how hard the real world was, no matter how far away happiness seemed.
タクルさん、
ほら立てよ。立って一緒に来いよ。
I would take her with me. If only it were that simple.
ありがとう、タクルさん。
And then Uki smiled a little.
でも、ダメです。
Of course she knows. Of course she understands. She quietly brushed my hand away.
私はもう、ここに来るだけでもう限界だったんです。
何を言って。
She pointed to the D-sword in my hand with a shaking finger.
久野里さんが言っていました。ディソードは妄想と現実とをつなぐ橋のようなものなんだって。
そんなことは。
だからそれをしっかりと伝っていけばきっと現実に戻れます。
お前がいれば現実に戻れるんだろ。だったらお前も一緒に。
It won't help. Because even if she does, she's still going to die. Bring Uki back into reality won't help her. Uki was sitting on the floor, reaching out a shaking hand. She was reaching for a broken pot. It had shattered during the fight, and the Scheffler was lying on the floor looking sad. Somehow it seemed like it was just like Uki herself.
タクルさん。
There's nothing we can do except leave this place ourselves.
この子、ありがとうございました。
そんなの。
It was nothing at all. But before I could say another word, Uki
「嬉しかった」
collapsed to the floor. And then the world started to fall apart. The ground and sky started to roar and shake. And everything was pulled back into a pre-quantum state of possibility. Now we need to leave this place before the same happens to us, Takuru. Everything dissolved into ones and zeros and fell apart. The end of the world was inescapable, and it was almost upon me. I desperately tried to grab her tiny body, but her outlines started to blur. The matter that made up her body was dissolving, like sand being blown away by the wind. It was turning back into ones and zeros, nothing more than quantum possibilities, and disappearing as if it had never been there.
Uki!
I stabbed the D-sword into the floor and clung to it to help myself stay standing. It's getting worse. And soon the destruction came for me as well. It felt like my body was being ripped apart. A wave of annihilation enveloped me, and all of my senses blacked out. Everywhere I looked, there was nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Just an endless void. Or perhaps, was this the Durak Sea, where all things would someday return? I was wandering an endless void. Particles of light were flowing upward all around me. Even in this form, I could tell exactly what they were. This was Uki. No, that wasn't quite right. It was the memories that made her up. The memories poured into my brain like a rushing torrent. A young Uki. Her parents had brought her to a strange building and she was sitting there confused as the adults around her bowed their heads low to the floor. A gloomy room filled with cement and metal. Dozens of horrible devices. Experiments. But even then she was smiling when she was with her friends. Young Yui and others too. In the earthquake and the destruction. A sealed room. Screaming adults. Fear of reality and longing. Two colliding desires. We want you to stay pure, innocent, and untainted, and take care of us forever. She subconsciously rebooted that desire. And that's what had happened to her body. Still, she accepted everything, even her own fate. The world turned pure white and began to be rebuilt again. I clutched the D-sword tightly with my fingers, just like Uki had told me.
タクルってば、
I think we're finally emerging back into reality.
のんちゃん、今、声が。
These voices.
タクル、タクル。
They were calling out for me over and over. Your concern is touching, Sakuma. I say that with absolute dripping sarcasm. The world began to regain its color.
タクル、わかる？私が誰だかわかる？
Indeed we do, Nonokurusu.
わかるに決まってるだろう。クルス。
私は。
誰だっけ。冗談だよ、尾上。
痛いって。
こら、意識が戻ったからって飛びつくやつがあるか。絶対安静だぞ。
Well, looks like we're back. Sakuma ran through the curtain separating the beds and pulled Seruka off me, then peered at my face.
うん、意識もはっきりとしているな。
As he started to give me an exam, I looked down at my hand. It was still in the shape it had been when I was holding the D sword.
でもよかった。目覚めてくれて。ほんとだよ。どれだけ心配したか。
こいつら、ずっとお前があっち行っちまわないよう声をかけ続けてくれてたんだぞ。
ありがとう。二人の声、聞こえてた。
Indeed, if it weren't for them, we might not have been able to get out.
ううん、いいって。私たちとタクの中じゃん。そうよ。それに、これ以上家族がいなくなっちゃうなんて。
Ah, the penny drops. We're back in reality. Which means that Yui Tachibana is still murdered. And as for poor Uki Yamazoe, Kurisu's voice suddenly cut off. Anymore. Was she talking about Yui? And one more person.
ウキ。
I sat up and asked. But we already know the answer to that question, don't we? Kurisu and Seruka both looked away from me, lips pressed into a thin line. Just from that I could tell. Uki was gone. In the corner of my eye I could see the curtain separating this bed from the next. That was where Sakuma had been a moment ago. Uki was there. But she was gone now. Uki would never move again. She'd never help get dinner ready or help Sakuma at his work all day without a single complaint. I'd known it was going to happen. Uki had told me. But I thought that there'd been some chance. Just like how there's a 50-50 chance the cat in the box is alive, at least until you open it. I thought that just maybe I had to accept it. I had to face it. But my feelings overflowed. Hot tears dripped down my face. Uki Yamazoe is no more. There was nothing I could do now but cry. I thought I could save her. This time I thought I could save her. In Uki, I'd seen the girl I'd witnessed at the facility so long ago, Senri Minamisawa, and this time I thought I could save her. Was that wrong? Even when she was down in that basement, Uki had never thought of herself as sad. Maybe I was being arrogant to think I could save her. Maybe what I'd done for her was just for my own self-satisfaction. Was she ever able to feel any happiness for herself? Even a little? Even if it was all just a delusion in the end?
ありがとうございました、タクルさん。
Uki's words echoed in my mind.
私は夢の中でほんの少しでも憧れの日々を送ることができました。
Indeed, because even though that delusion was of her own making, she shared in it as well. Thank you, she said at the very last moment. It was a tiny little wish, and it had only come true in her dreams. It wasn't fair, but that's reality for you. I cried for a little while after that. For Uki. For a little girl who only wanted other people to be happy. Who deserved happiness herself.
つまり山添雨樹を殺したのは自分だとそう言うんだな。
It's good to see you too, Detective Shinjo. Several days later, Shinjo and Kunosato came to ask me about what had happened, and I told them everything. And
はい、今言った通り、あの日彼女の命を奪ったのは僕です。だから
indeed,
逮捕してくれってのか。
はい、
we're pretty much in the same boat as Shinji Ito right now. I could still feel it in my hands. The feeling when I'd run her body through. I was the one who killed her, and I had to atone for it.
だから僕を逮捕してください。
The police probably wanted to find a killer as soon as possible. That's why I thought that Shinjo would gladly put the handcuffs on me, but
どう思う？
ありえないな。
だよな。
Shinjo and Kunosato were looking at each other and saying something that didn't make sense.
ありえないってどういうことですか？僕がウキを殺したということがですか？でも僕は確かに刺したんですよ。この手でウキをディソードをリアルブートして。
I was saying so, and I was the one who killed her. How could it be impossible?
山添雨樹の遺体に目立った外傷はなかった。
But that meant
どういう意味です？
どうもこうも言葉のままだ。山添雨樹の遺体に目立った外傷はない。
then was that too a delusion? A lie?
一応事件の関係者ということで検視も行われたが、何らかの外的な衝撃で死んだわけではないという結論が出ている。要するに山添雨季は自然死だ。そこに事件性はない。
No, that death was far from natural. A natural death.
そんなバカな。僕は確かにこの手で雨季を。
それは確かなんだな。
Kunasato had been mostly silent, but now she interrupted me.
お前はディソードをリアルブーとして山添を指した。それは確かなんだな。
だからさっきから言ってるでしょ。本当ですよ。
なるほど。では可能性があるとすれば、いや、だがしかし。
何ですか？教えてください。
Yeah, something's not adding up. Kunisato's words cut off and I stormed over to her.
山添雨季がお前を殺人犯にしないため、最後の力を振り絞って自らの死が自然死だったという妄想をリアルブーとしたという可能性もあるかと思ったんだが、彼女が死んでしまった今となってはそれも。あるいはここがまだ妄想の世界だというのなら話は別だがな。
A world of delusions. This was another delusion?
胡蝶の夢。
The words came to me suddenly, and I suddenly looked up. Someone was looking at me. But who? I looked outside the room, trying to see who it was. There was a long, dim hallway. And beyond it, there was...
どうした、宮代。
いや、今、人の影が。
I thought I saw a tiny shadow. The shadow of a tiny girl, holding a sword much too big for her.
影？
More of a silhouette, I guess. But when I looked again, it was gone. Very peculiar. Are we still in a delusion of sorts? A dream within a dream? Another sky end. Yeah, that was very, very peculiar. We have obtained yet another ending. Yet another piece of the proverbial puzzle. But that is going to be it for this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Child. And when we return, adventurers, yeah, there is still yet another ending to be obtained. For Uki's story isn't quite over just yet. As always, until next we meet.